An Eastern Cape mother remains in the dark on the progress of her multi-million rand medical legal claim. Now, she began this process with lawyers 9 years ago, but says she has no idea whether the claim has been finalized. She last had contact with the lawyers back in 2019. Now, in this report by Malungelo Boy, we've concealed her identity to protect her young child.
Andisiva right because kaloku ndiyasokola ukusokola kwam umntana uphila ngemali ye-disability, so ayimoneli le disability.
This Eastern Cape mother says she doesn't know the status of her daughter's medical legal claim. In 2013, she gave birth to a baby girl at Mthatha Regional Hospital. The 33-year-old says she was told at the hospital that her daughter had brain damage due to the prolonged labor she had experienced, affecting air circulation to the child. However, in 2015, she received a call from a lawyer offering to assist her to sue the state.
Okay, what from kanjani igqwetha?
Kodwa lindifowunela ndandingalazi.
Oh, liye lakufowunela?
Ndafonela ligqwetha lathi licela ukudibana nami. Ndabe ndisekhaya ezilalini. Nyhani shem ndaya nyhani etawuni ndadibana e-STS. Lithi lifumene ifolder yomntana eNelson Mandela. Then lathi uba lifumene ifolder yomntana eNelson Mandela, so ufuna ukupusha icase yomntana.
The mother of one says it was then that the process of the legal medical claim began.
Zaqala ilantuka iprocess zegqwetha umsaka ugqirha wathi sohamba ugqirha bayi-21 saya nyhani eNelson elantukeni eSt Mary's wenziwa i-scan ilantuka i-scan sengqondo. Emva koko basibuyile eSt Mary's following year ngo-2014 saya eDurban. I think eDurban siye kogqirha bayi-19 eDurban besingayi kugqirha oyi-1. Saya naseJoburg. Ugqibela kwam ke uya kugqirha oyi-21 ndiye eCape Town eTigerberg. Ogqirha kaloku akho nto bandinikeza yona mna, yonke into bayibhala phantsi, i-information kusebhuthini lam. Mna kukuhamba nje ndihamba nomntana. So akho nto ndixela feedback endixelelwayo mna ligqwetha lam eliyazi yonke information yomntana.
But 9 years since the legal process began, she's yet to hear if payment has been made, as the lawyer has stopped making contact with her.
Ugqibela kwam ke kugqirha oyi-21 kwakuseCape Town eTigerberg. Sabuya ke I think wayi-5 ka-April 2018. Sabuya ke nyhani ubuya kwam. Then ngo-2019 wandibiza saya kuye wathi siyosayina iripoti abagqirha besibahamba. Sayisayina iripoti ndagqiba ndabuya ndalinda kuye ndabane ndimfowunela angayipick up ifowuni ndimWhatsApp andibluthike. I think ndagqibela ngo-2019 ucommunicate naye ngendaba yomntana. So xa ndimfowunela kayibambi ifowuni, xa ndimWhatsApp uyandibluthika. Ndadicide ke ngokuphuma kuye elo gqwetha elo ndaya kwelinye, but eli ndinalo ngoku bendiqala nalo last year akabikho nto sesiyenzile nalo.
Because lilinde.
Xa ndimbuza uba wayi ehle lo wesibini engasebenzisiyo uthi ulinde ifayile ekule gqwetha lam lokuqala.
She is now desperate for answers.
Ndifuna yobhuti mna kokuba ndine-questions mos ezithi why le case idileyile. Utheni engandixeleli uba kwenzeka ntoni ngecase.
The woman says all she wants is to be able to offer her daughter the best possible care. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Malungelo Boy in Mthatha.
All right, let's stay with this story. The law firm Nonxuba Attorneys has been mentioned multiple times in the SIU probe on suspected fraudulent medico-legal claims, both in the Eastern Cape and in the Free State. Let's bring in the director of the Legal Practice Council in Gauteng, Ignatius. Briel, it's great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on. And what a disturbing story it is. I'm sure you would have been listening into that interview with our reporter, Malungelo Boy. It's devastating, particularly because it seems that there are certainly law firms that have been allegedly involved in this kind of practice for many, many years.
Hi, Michelle. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. It is indeed quite concerning. I think the one thing that really gets to me is the nature of the claimants that are being prejudiced by this kind of conduct. I mean, it's unconscionable that somebody can actually take money from a child with cerebral palsy.
So in terms of the Legal Practice Council, I understand that the one Johannesburg-based law firm, Nonxuba Attorneys, has since been charged. The lawyer himself, Zuko Nonxuba, suspended from practicing as an attorney. If indeed someone in the legal practice is found guilty of something like this, what are some of the steps that follow from there?
So normally we would have to investigate the complaints against an attorney when something like this arises. There are exceptional circumstances. If we can clearly show that money has been taken from the trust account, then we can circumvent a lot of the long investigation processes and approach the court directly. But unfortunately, in many of these matters, as was the case in Nonxuba, it becomes very difficult to actually prove what has been taken from the trust account, because most often these kind of attorneys who do this do not cooperate with us in the investigation, and they hide information, which then makes the investigation to take very long.
In your opinion, Ignatius, given that the SIU is now launching this sort of wide-scale investigation into fraudulent medico-legal claims, what's been missing in terms of accountability to ensure that when claims like these are lodged, they are legitimate, and when the payments are made, they go to the right people?
Look, I think the problem that you sit with is that this is a whole infrastructure that's been set up. And it's not only attorneys involved. And I think yesterday or over the weekend, the minister had alluded to that. You've got medical experts involved. You've got staff from hospitals involved. You've got touts involved. And I think it really requires an overarching investigation, which is what the SIU is busy with. When it comes to accountability for the attorneys, the most important thing is for the SIU and the LPC to cooperate and make sure that once we have the information that we proceed with these as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So specifically on Nonxuba, I must really commend the SIU for the work that they've done. They've done a sterling job in getting the information in circumstances that LPC might have found it difficult to get some of this information.
And
it's only through this cooperation that we can really succeed in this.
Yeah, apologies for that interruption. When we talk about collusion, Ignatius, we're talking about collusion across a whole range of sectors, not only in legal practice, but possibly the health department, and the list goes on and on.
That's correct. That's definitely what we are seeing, because surely the attorney on his own cannot, without the assistance from a medical expert, prove to the court that there is a claim. So they do rely on medical experts to inflate claims, or as we've seen in some instances, to even falsify claims.
The other very important issue now, of course, is trying to get the money back from these attorneys who are indeed found to be guilty of this.
Yes. So what the LPC does, our prime mandate is not necessarily to collect the money. We do have the ability to do that, to try and recoup funds that have been stolen from trust. But normally, once it gets to that point, there's very little money left in the estate of the attorney. And the matter gets handed over to the LPFF, who then can decide whether they want to try and recoup funds from the practitioner. But the LPFF is a fund of last resort, so they act as an insurer to actually cover the money lost by claimants.
What's the responsibility in terms of what the legal practice is mandated to do, Ignatius, to ensure that members are always practicing at the height of what they do, ethically speaking?
Yeah. So definitely that is our prime mandate, to ensure that people comply with the ethics. The difficulty that we experience is that we very often only become aware of the failure to act ethically once a complaint gets lodged. The Act does not really allow us to interfere in somebody's business or in the practice unless there's a complaint. But we do communicate very regularly with attorneys to indicate these are your ethical responsibilities. We publish things such as the outcomes of the Nonxuba matter, so that practitioners and the public are aware of what are the obligations of the attorneys, but also the rights of the public.
Is this something that the Legal Practice Council can now keep a closer eye on, given that we now know, and you know, I hasten to add that this is absolutely not a new issue, right? We've known about things like this taking place, particularly insofar as fraudulent medico-legal claims are concerned. The Road Accident Fund comes to mind as well. But is it something that you, as the Legal Practice Council, can now keep a closer eye on? Is there anything that changes now in how you hold your members accountable?
No, I don't think there's anything that changes. What definitely is clear to us, and we've started doing that some time ago already, is to actually monitor what's being reported. So we do not necessarily wait for a complaint. You know, where a court has made some adverse finding against a practitioner, we would even take those and deal with them as complaints to make sure that we try and catch these as quickly as possible. But in terms of the processes to be followed, you know, the processes remain. And like I said, it's with assistance from organizations like the SIU that we can actually act much quicker. And I hope to very shortly have a meeting again with the SIU to see how we can deal with the complaints specifically relating to Gauteng.
Yeah, certainly. I imagine that it's of concern to you for a whole range of very obvious ethical reasons, but also because it casts a shadow over your industry.
It does, unfortunately. And, you know, the sad part is that the attorneys who make themselves guilty of this type of conduct are in the minority. If we look at the complaints that get lodged, you know, it's really a small handful of practitioners who do this. I mean, at the moment, we have a roll of more than 40,000 practitioners. So if you then have 10 or 20 practitioners who make themselves guilty of this, it is a small minority. Unfortunately, that does not assist the public. You know, even one attorney who does this, especially with the nature of the claimants involved, is simply too many.
Yeah, absolutely. Ignatius Briel, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. He's the Director of the Legal Practice Council. As we continue to talk about the SIU now probing some 3 billion rand and possibly much, much more in dodgy medico-legal claims, collusion found between lawyers and health staff.